And I swear, if you leave that interview without asking a single question, consider your resume to just be shredded as you're walking out the door. It's that serious. Hey everyone, and today we're talking all about interview tips. So whether you're in college, high school, this is your first job, your fifth job, you're switching jobs, interviewing is just a natural part of the process that we all have to go through. All companies are different. Some companies have panel interviews to where it's you and 5 or 6 other people. Most of them have phone screenings to where HR calls you to make sure that you're past initial vibe check, that you're actually serious. You might have 2 interview rounds, maybe you have 4 or 5. There's a lot that goes into it, but overall the gist is the same, and that's that they're asking you questions to make sure you're actually a good fit, that you know your resume, that you know what you're talking about, and that you're actually serious about wanting the job. And the discipline and professionalism that you bring to each interview is the same. So I'm here to share with you guys some tips that have helped me with interviewing. I recently started a new job not too long ago from recording this, and just knowing how to present myself and how to conduct myself in these interviews made the process 10 times easier. So sit back, grab your resume, and let's dive into interview tips to help you secure your next internship, full-time job, whatever you might be applying for. First up, you should have done this before you even applied for the job, but if you somehow skip this step, kudos to you for it working. But research the company. It's so obvious when someone comes into an interview and they don't know what the company does or why they even applied for them. So at least the day before, sit down for a solid hour, get your notepad and take notes on the company. Some key things I look for: the company values, what they really appreciate, kind of what's their core group of things and words and key phrases that they really emphasize with their employee, what's their culture like. Any recent projects they've worked on, so any new productions, any new publications, articles, blog posts. Read through those that we can actually talk intelligently about, oh, I noticed you guys just released XYZ product, or that you're currently working on ABC thing. Tell me more about that. It shows you've done your research, and people love that. So dive into who you're interviewing with. LinkedIn's a beautiful place. Make sure yours is updated, but do some digging in the company history, the culture. If they have an About Me video, start there. That's usually a perfect way to get a nice, concise summary about what the company does and what you're applying for. And also research the job position itself. Most job descriptions have a pretty detailed bullet point list of what you're doing. And just make sure you're applying A, for the right thing, but then B, for what you actually think the role is about. So do your research, take your notes, and yes, you can have your notes with you in the interview. We'll talk more about that later, but just make sure you actually know the company that you're trying to work for. The next tip before you even step foot into the interview room is, while you're in your research phase, you're going to prepare at least 5 questions minimum to ask your panel or to ask your interviewer. Why? Because it shows that you did your research and that you're also vetting them to make sure it's a good fit for you. As I said in the introduction of this video, if you leave that interview without asking a question, they are going to automatically assume that you are not interested. Everyone always asks at least 2 or 3 questions. And here's a pro tip for interviewing: if you can get them talking more than you are winning the game. You want to quickly turn the tables back in an interview. It's one of the best pieces of advice I got from my mentors in college, is that if you get the interviewing team laughing, you have them talking amongst themselves, sharing personal stories, that means that they like you, you're a good fit. It's a great sign. So I'm not saying just to walk in and start asking them questions only. No, they are there to interview you, but if you can slip in questions every now and then, you don't have to wait to the very end for your questions. Typically, I let them ask 2 or 3 questions and I'll interject with 1 or 2, and it kind of helps change the tone from it being an interview more to a conversation. It makes it a lot easier for you and for them. So come with questions, you can write them down. I was like, oh, I have a list of questions here. Can I run through them with you guys? That has never been an issue with anyone in the past. They're happy I have questions prepared. So sit down and find and make some pointed questions for your company. So typically I say have the general 1 or 2 kind of personal questions. What brought you to the company? Why are you staying here with the team still? What was your experience like the past whatever years they've been there? And then ask them more pointed questions about your role. So what does growth look like? What does the training opportunities look like? What kinds of projects will I be working on? Show your interest and show you actually did some deep diving into the company, but always, always, always ask the question. If they ask, do you have questions? Your answer is always yes. If you blank on a question, make one up on the spot, because it looks really, really bad if you don't ask a single question about the role. The next tip regarding resumes: you better know your resume. Do not walk into that interview with lies on your resume, because they will find out, even if they let you get away with it in the interview, either from your references, from your transcripts, from something, the truth will come to light at some point. Heck, even if you get hired, if you're incompetent in anything on your resume, you just outed yourself. So make sure you can actually talk about every single thing on your resume in detail. Nothing is falsified. You are not lying. You are telling the truth. Because if you stumble over any resume bullet point, they're going to question, did they actually do this? Were they actually as involved as they're saying? I've had friends that have put resume bullet points that were like, yeah, I was in this club, but I didn't actually do anything except eat chips and watch the presentation. Like, no, put meaningful things on your resume and put things that you can back up. My rule of thumb is that it has to have at least 3 or 4 bullet points that I could talk about in detail. I have to have an example of projects I worked on or things I was a part of, who I led. And also, it has to have a reference. So for every club I was in, is there a person that can vouch for me if I were to call on them saying, did I do this? Was I this cabinet member? Did I manage this process? You want to make sure that you can back up every single thing on that paper, because some companies intensely scrutinize the heck out of your resume, and people can find out. If there is a will, there is most definitely a way. So be honest, be truthful, but make sure you can actually talk about in detail what's on your resume. Now, in the interview process, there are ways that you want to stand out and make yourself special, differentiate from the others in a professional way. And the easiest way to do that is simply just by how you print your resume. So I encourage you to print your resume on resume paper. No, I did not just make that up. It's an actual thing. Get it off Amazon. I'll link it in the description box below to my interview essentials. But it's not too expensive, honestly. They make it in different colors. So you can get white, like a cream or tan kind of color, even like some soft pinks or blues. And what happens is that paper, it's different texture, just different quality. It stands out in a stack of resumes that are just printed on printer paper. And that's an immediate way to be like, oh, this one's different. And now they remember, oh, Dania, she applied here on this day. Her resume looks really nice. Let's review it again. Simple way to stand out in a crowd. So I'll link in the description box below. Grab yourself a few sheets, super helpful. It makes all the difference. I have gotten compliments saying, oh, thank you for actually taking the time to print this out nicely for us. People remember your resume, 100%. If you have a portfolio, that's great. I'd include a link to it on your resume somewhere, or bring out paper hard copies of something printed out, or offer, hey, I have this portfolio, I have my artwork, I have past projects, I can email that to you after this, but just try to avoid actively being on your devices unless they request it for some reason. Even in the waiting room, because usually, at least for all my interviews, I've had to wait for about 5 or 10 minutes because you want to get there early before you actually have to be talking to someone. I won't even have my phone while I'm waiting. I'll just be looking through my notes I have, making sure I'm good to go, making sure I have my questions rehearsed and my answers rehearsed. I'll look around at any flyers or stuff that they have. I'll be engaged with physical media, but put the phone away. It shows that you were locked in and serious from the second you step foot in that door. My next tip is to then get yourself a padfolio for everything. You don't want to be juggling all your resumes, getting them all crinkled and dirty, your pens, your notepads, any business cards you might get. You have to shake hands. You'll be moving around a lot during the interview process, and the last thing you want to do is be fumbling and dropping stuff. So with that, get a nice padfolio that can hold everything. That way you have one hand free when you're shaking people's hands to meet them. Just makes you look a lot more classy. If you get business cards or any handouts from them, there's a nice safe place to store them, and it just elevates your look. When you walk in with a business pad and padfolio, you walking in with confidence, your head held high, it sets the tone. So get a padfolio, get a nice folder. It just helps you stand out a bit more as well. Now, of course, before you even step foot into that interviewing room, you gotta practice. So whether it's by yourself, with a friend, with your parents, with your pet, heck, I have sat my cats down and talked to them as if I'm interviewing someone, just so I have that face-to-face eye contact practice. Like, just get yourself comfortable with talking and answering the types of questions. Google is free. Go online and research interview questions. Yes, each company will have their own variation of technical questions and things like that. But from your research and from what you know about the role, you can probably take a good guess at what kinds of questions they might be asking you. And also the basic personality questions, tell me about yourself, walk me through your resume, etc. You can prepare for those on your own just by looking stuff up. If you're practicing solo, just record yourself. Say the question aloud, record yourself responding, and then self-check. Did the answer make sense? Was I rambling? Did I actually answer what they were asking me in that question? Was it relevant to the company? So you don't have to wait to be in front of an interviewer panel to actually get that real life experience. You can do it at home with your camera. Record yourself. Super, super simple. And with that, you want to practice what's called the STAR method when you're answering these questions. So STAR stands for situation, task, action, and end result. And they're great for the situational type of questions. So tell me about a time when, or how have you handled a situation when, or give me an example of when you had to do this. Those types of questions use the STAR framework. And what STAR is meant to do, it's meant to help keep you on track with your responses and make sure you're concise. I've actually had interviews where I've seen the interviewer sheet in front of them and they're taking notes and they really have STAR written out on their paper and they're filling in, okay, what was the situation she was in? What were the tasks that she had to do? What was the action she had to take? What was the end result? What did she learn? And they write that down to make sure that you can give concise answers. So practice the STAR method. Again, look it up on Google if you need more details, but STAR should hopefully help you keep your answers under 2 or so minutes. You should not be giving them the full life story of what you did for the project or the situation. It should be concise, should be brief, but gives them enough context and information to get the gist of what you had to work on. Now, when you're walking into that building, how you walk into the building absolutely matters. So if you walk in really shy and timid, you're looking at the ground, you're not making eye contact, that receptionist is when your interview starts. The cameras is when your interview starts because they will talk to each other. I promise you, because I've done this as an interviewer for other people, I will ask the receptionist or people that just saw them in passing, hey, how was their body language? Were they scared? Were they confident? Were they respectful? Were they rude? Like, just tell me about them. So people will talk, even if it's not your interviewer or your potential manager. If anyone you interact with, assume that they will talk to the person that's interviewing you and give them a report on you. So when you walk in, you are so friendly to that receptionist, you're smiling, you're happy to be there, you say hi to anyone that walks by, you are 100% on your A game and ready to talk to anyone because I promise all those people will be asked about you when you leave. With also tying into standing out professionally, how you dress matters. So you don't want to look like me when you walk in. As much as I love my comfy sweatshirts and my baggy ripped jeans, if you walk into that to your interview, they are going to immediately assume that this is a joke to you. So please get some nice professional wear, get some nice shoes, get a nice blouse, nice blazer, some nice slacks to wear. I got all of my essentials off Amazon just because it was super cheap and efficient and they've still lasted me for years. Again, I'll put those in the description box below for you to check out, but just make sure you elevate your look. Don't go for your everyday street style. Don't look like you just rolled out of bed 5 minutes ago and ran over there to interview. Give yourself time to be presentable. Give yourself time to get ready that day. Make sure you look well kept and well groomed, and that makes all the difference because the second you walk in that door, you are being judged. They're looking at how confidently you present yourself when you walk in. Do you say hello? Do you maintain eye contact? How do you look? All of that matters from the very first second. So make sure you look the part, make sure you look like you want this because they are assessing that from the very first second that they see you. This next one is really important nowadays, especially in the digital age, and that's to put the phone away, guys. There is no reason for you to be checking your watch or checking your phone while you're actively interviewing. Typically, I will just leave my phone in my car while I'm interviewing just because I don't need it. I'm walking to the building, I have the contact information, the receptionist will help me. Just put the phone away, put it on silent if you have to have it with you. Don't be checking the time and checking your watch. Be engaged the second that you're in that door because they are also checking, okay, are they glued to their phone? Will texting for them be a problem? Are they so reliant where they have to have their phone 24/7 that they can't get work done? They're making those kinds of assumptions about you just based on how you interact with technology. Now, this next tip has happened to me multiple times while I've interviewed. Unfortunately, it's just natural. And that's when you have the sinking feeling of, oh, this company actually isn't a good fit for me. Whether it's the work you're doing itself, what's required, whether it's personality clash. So I've had an interview to where I did not vibe with who was gonna be my manager. and I knew if I had that job, I would have a bad time. So I just did not accept that offer, didn't continue any further. But when you are in the moment, actually talking to those people, you are faking it until you make it out that door. So even if you made up your mind saying, no, I don't want to engage with them, I don't want to work here, I don't want to do X, Y, Z, they are not going to know that. You are keeping your mouth shut to that detail, okay? You keep that to yourself until you're back in your car, back home, away from them. Because if you slip up, if you talk bad, say you don't want this, even on accident, and you just kind of said something in the moment, you just unfortunately ruin that opportunity of a job for you. If that was your kind of your last case emergency job, you now have nothing left. So keep any negative thoughts to yourself. Be friendly, be cordial, be respectful. And if you don't like the job when you get back home, guess what? You don't have to accept it. You don't have to move forward, but keep any thoughts of not wanting to proceed to yourself in person. Even if they kind of ask you in person, are you still wanting this? You can go, yes, this is interesting to me. I want to learn more. Please teach me more. There are very neutral answers that you can give that don't expose your cards. So be aware of that and just make sure that you are just respectful, and any negative thoughts, zip it. They don't exist. They don't exist while you're on the premises. And one of the biggest tips is you want to try and turn the tides of the interview as quickly as possible. And what I mean by that is that you want to get them talking more than you are talking. Now, I'm not saying barge in there with your question list and then just ask all your questions up front. You are not interviewing them per se, they are interviewing you, but you want to learn more about the company, but you want to get the heat off of yourself as quickly as possible. So my formula I tend to use is typically I'll let them ask 2 or 3 questions to me, I'll answer those, and usually by that time a natural question comes up anyway of, oh, you mentioned that you did this, tell me more about that, how does that pertain to my role, or how does that intersect with the company? And then you got an easy way to give yourself a moment to breathe, to think while they're answering your question. You get to learn more about them and the company, but also now you have them talking and now they're taking up interview time. So the second that you can turn things back over to them where it makes sense, do it. You don't have to wait until the very end to ask your questions, but don't flood them with questions either at the very start, because again, they are here to interview you first. But remember, you are also allowed to interview them. You are also making sure that they are a good fit for you. And any good employer should also understand that it has to be a two-way street in order for it to work. So don't feel like you're on the interrogation board the entire time, because if you can make it more of a conversation versus an interrogation by having a back and forth of questions throughout the interview, it makes all parties less stressed and it helps you breathe a bit more. So don't be afraid to ask your questions in between the questions that they're giving you, because once you get them talking and laughing, it's a pretty good sign that you're going to be a pretty good fit there. And also to reveal to them, okay, do they actually like me talking in these situations or things like that. A lot can be told about how they handle questions coming back to them. So keep that in your back pocket and keep that in mind. Get it to be a conversation as soon as possible. Now, following up with that tip is that regardless of how it went, whether you think you aced it, you bombed it, you hated them, you love them, send a thank you note afterwards. Digital age, so super simple. The rule I follow is that within 24 hours, you should be emailing any contacts you have saying, hey, thank you for your time. I love learning about this. This is a personal thing you learned about the company or about someone while you were there. Explain, oh, I think I'll be a great fit because of insert skill sets here. Please reach out to me with next steps. I look forward to hearing back from you if you have any questions, etc. Or if you didn't want to continue in the process any further, it's still the same gist of thank you for your time. I appreciate it. However, I determined that this won't be a good fit for me. However, thank you so much for meeting with me. I will be in touch. I hope you guys will be in touch with any new opportunities moving forward that might be a better fit. There are just so many ways to navigate the I don't like this or this is great, please follow up with me situation. But no matter what, within 24 hours, send your thank you notes, reach out to people, thank them for their time. If you want to move forward, great. You now have an avenue to follow up with them. It's been a week or two. You can then hop back on that same thank you chain saying, hey, it's been 2 weeks. I want just to follow up with how things are going. Any next steps for me? Super, super simple. So no matter what, send a thank you note, because people don't. And I very much remember the people that do reach out to me and tell me, thank you for your time. It makes them stand out because it's such a simple thing that takes 5 seconds of your day. Typically, I'll have the email just drafted ready to go before I even interview. I'll pop back into it, make my modifications, make my notes, make the personal touch to it from what I learned in the interview, and then I'll send it out. Simple as that. Takes 5 or 10 minutes. Send your thank yous. They do make the difference in who moves forward or not. Okay, guys, that is my brain dump of interview tips for you all. I really hope this helps you out, whether you're switching jobs, your first time job, looking for a part-time job, internship, co-op, whatever stage you might be in. All these tips do apply. Please, please, please drop in the comment section if you have any tips that worked for you while interviewing. Let people know in the comment section, just because we're all in this together. Every interview is slightly different, but there is a lot of commonality. So share your experiences, share what you're nervous about. That way people can chime in and help share with you some tips, tricks, and just things that help them ace in job interviews and make their whole process a lot simpler. If you haven't already, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell. That way you know when I upload new videos. I try to upload at least 2 or 3 times a week for you all. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.